I hope you're ready because I am. Just like in many of my other podcasts, I have a question for you, maybe a multi-part question. So this is a Resilient Entrepreneur podcast. This is Kevin Johnson of Leverage Consulting. And the question is, do you know what you want from your team? And for those of you who wonder, who's on my team? Do I even have a team? Yes, every one of you has a team. If you don't, I'm not going to go too deeply into that one, but literally, if you pretty much do anything on this earth, you have a team, somehow, way, shape, or form. But many of you work with a team, you're on a team, you are a manager, you're a leader, you're an owner, you have a team in some way, shape, or form. So the question is, do you know what you want from your team? And I'm going to give you some examples of this and why I really asked this question, because I believe a lot of entrepreneurs, leaders, owners, managers, they know in their head what they want, but oftentimes their team does not know what that owner, leader, manager wants. Recently, I was sitting with a client and it became abundantly clear that they were understaffed and they needed someone else. And they said, okay, let's put an ad in the paper, Let's put an ad online. Let's hire another person. I said, okay. And I said, let's start writing that job description. And immediately we wanted to blow right on past this, zero interest. But the question really became, for the person who's going to do the interviewing, how are you to tell that person, this is what we need from you? Because the interview is literally one of the most crucial parts of an employee-employer relationship, manager-employee relationship, team member relationship. It's one of the most critical things because this is the start. And this oftentimes, unless you're really good at being able to hit the reset button, which is, I believe, that's a much harder place for a lot of people. The interview is one of the best places to set expectations and find out whether someone is the right person for the job or they're just looking for a paycheck. And that's no disrespect to anyone. That's just more of some people are like, I have bills to pay, as opposed to I'm looking for a place where I fit in and I can be a big contributor. So when you think about going through that interview, can you summarize in 5 to 10 bullet points, this is what we need from you? Because that means you know exactly what you expect of that person when you give them a hire date, or when you sit down with them 30 days later, 90 days later, can we both go back and say, this is turning out to be a successful relationship and a successful employment, or something's not working out well. And we then allows us to pinpoint what's not working out well. And how do we fix it? Sometimes it's miscommunication. Sometimes it's job skills training. Could be any number of things, but that again allows us to pinpoint what that is. For long-term employees, long-term employment, and this is another, again, I think I mentioned this recently and I worked on it a little bit more since then, but it's a video I want to do where I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk about how, say, an entrepreneur or owner, a doctor, someone who owns a business, and they start out at a certain point and then that business grows over time. And let's just say if we said on a scale of effectiveness, that business went from a 3 to a 9 over time. Well, the question is, do the employees stay the same over time, or does that employee does their skill set mirror and follow along with the effectiveness of that business? And that basically means that they're working on their own skill sets. And as I talked about in one of the recent podcasts where we talk about the actual technical skill sets, but also the mental game side of things. And those things are developed over time. So whether you become one who can deal with tough customers, tough patients, you're one that can deal with even team members that get stressed out in certain situations, and we're just the calming force for all that. So when you think about your team and what you want from them, this is one of the things I do when I go to work with a client, is I start going around and asking team members, what are you responsible for? And many times I work to help boil down those team members' responsibilities oftentimes to 3, 4, sometimes no more than 5 things, because we can overcomplicate it with so many other things. And yes, there's a ton of responsibilities out there, but we can boil down basic responsibilities. So for example, if you own a dental or surgical practice, it might come down to something as simple as, can you keep the schedule filled? Because that could be the overriding factor for everything. If you're a clinical team member in a medical or dental practice, well, how well can you keep your doctor on time, and what's the customer service level like? Or basically, are your patients leaving with a smile? I boiled down many job descriptions down to 3 things. Can you keep your producer or your doctor on time? Do your patients leave here with a smile? And do your coworkers leave here with a smile? If you can do those 3 things, I can assure you your practice is doing well, your team is doing well. Again, go back to the question of, do your team members know what they're responsible for? Because literally, whether we're looking at just the day, or we're looking at a month or a year, they should know what they're responsible for. And that's really the whole point of having, say, a morning meeting every day. It's a point of having a meeting periodically where it might be something as simple as, we are figuring out how to make the most of the patients that we have today, how we're going to make the most out of the schedule that we have today. And that literally might be the whole premise for our morning meeting. That might be it. And quite honestly, most times that's all you really should concentrate on. But the detail comes in behind that, where you have maybe you have a tough case coming in, or you have a number of patients that we need to have direct conversations with, or we have an opportunity with 2 or 3 patients. Those are things where we need to maximize today. But then we can go back and look at, well, over time, maybe there's times where, let's face it, everyone has days where we're super swamped, and then we have other days where it's not so swamped. And that will give us the ability to do other things, mark things off our checklist. Could be skills drills training. So for example, I worked with one practice, and when we talked about doing intraoral scans, some of their team members were taking 20 and 30 minutes. Well, you can't really build a very efficient schedule off 20 to 30 minute scans. And sometimes those scans had to be redone because they're overdone and overexposed, I think is the term for it. But then you have someone else that can take a patient to the back, do an intraoral scan in 6 minutes, and the patient's walking out laughing. Okay, that's a successful and efficient use of our time and day. And if we're not able to do that, then we start practicing until we're able to do an intraoral scan that quickly, and the patient leaves here happy. Again, can we keep our producers on time, and do our patients leave here happy, and do our coworkers leave here happy? So sometimes we overcomplicate things because we can come up with all these different reasons why things happen or why they don't happen. Ultimately, we need to make things very simplistic, and we need to make sure that our team members thoroughly understand what's expected of them. I could use the same example of a real estate agent and a lender. As a real estate agent, you want a lender who can deliver the loan package on time or before the actual settlement date, and the customer, the client, is happy with the real estate agent and the lender. It's somewhat simplistic. If you're a home builder, I could come up with examples of that. So, I mean, the examples are countless, but the real question that you need to ask yourself and be very honest with yourself, and maybe this becomes the point, I would challenge you to use this in a team meeting, or even stop team members along the way and say, give me what are the 3 to 5 top responsibilities. And if they start giving you answers that are the minutia, the deep detail of what they do, we're missing the point. They don't get it. Going back to my example earlier about a scheduling coordinator, it's just a matter of, can you keep the schedule filled and productive? That's it. That is literally, can we keep that schedule filled, it's productive, and our team is happy? That's it. We don't need anything more than that. So it's not really a matter of whether we should be disappointed in this person who doesn't understand their job or what's expected of them, it gives us something to work on. And that's really, hopefully you get a lot of that out of these podcasts, is it gives you the ability to diagnose things and figure out what you need to work on to make yourself or make your team or make your business continue to get better. So that, my friends, was the Resilient Entrepreneur Podcast for today. As always, if you have content or questions, anything that you'd love for me to cover, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, stay tuned. I've got another great one coming up for you soon.